Hello and welcome to Healing Our Minds. Today we'll be looking at perspectives from Tibetan medicine and astro-sciences. There's a Tibetan saying that says, to be a good physician, one has to be a minor astro-science practitioner. And to be a good astro-science practitioner, one has to be a minor physician. Well, today we have with us both a good physician and a good astro-science practitioner. Please join me in welcoming Tenzin Loden, who's the head of the Astro-Science Outreach and Development at the Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute, Dharamsala. Tenzin Loden studied Tibetan Astro-Science at the Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute, where he later served as a lecturer. In 2020, he was appointed head of the newly established Astro-Science Department of Outreach and Development. He is a member of the Investigation Committee on Thukdam, a Buddhist phenomenon where a realized master's consciousness remains in the body for extended periods despite its physical death. Also with us is Dr. Tenzin Choying, who's the head of the Department of Mental Health at the Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute, Dharamsala. Dr. Choying is a second-generation doctor of Tibetan medicine with the equivalent of an MD in mental health. Her extensive experience includes traveling the globe for consultations and lectures on numerous platforms. She has served as an English translator of Fyuzhi, a native Tibetan text incorporating Indian, Chinese, and Greco-Arab medical systems. Created in the 12th century, they still form the basis of Tibetan medical practice. They will be in conversation with Rajiv Mehrotra, who is the honorary trustee and secretary of the Foundation for Universal Responsibility of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. He's been a personal student of His Holiness for many, many years. He's also an author of many books which have been translated around the world, a filmmaker, and a television anchor. Before I hand over to Mr. Mehrotra, I'd just like to inform everyone that there is a little box at the bottom of your screen towards the right, which says Q&A. So if you have any questions that occur to you while the conversation is taking place, please do write them out in the Q&A box. With that, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Mehrotra.
Thank you, Aparna. It is indeed a great honor, and shall I say a blessing for me to be in conversation with Choying and Loden, because I've had the great privilege of consulting with both their parents in my youth, which was a long time ago, and I celebrate the next generation picking up on the mantle of their parents, who are very distinguished doctor, and of course Tenzin Loden's parents are still practicing astrology, and I really want to start with pointing out really that in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the practice of astrology, astroscience, and medicine is a sacred art and a sacred science. Sacred in the sense that it derives from ancient texts and tantras. There are many schools of Tibetan medicine, and from the Kalachakra Tantra, which some of you may have heard of, His Holiness gives initiations around the Tantra. There is a Buddha aspect of healing, Menla, the medicine Buddha. And every morning, if you visit any of the Tibetan medical institutes or centers, you will find that the practitioners, whether the astrologers, the doctors, the clinicians, the people who dispense medicine, all of them spend a fair amount of time, half an hour, an hour, chanting and dedicating their work to healing, drawing on the inspiration of the Buddha aspect of healing, Menla. And I think that motivation to heal and to help in the larger aspiration of the Mahayana Buddhist tradition of the Bodhisattva or altruism is a very important guiding principle that governs the entire practice. And I think that alone is a very distinguishing factor in what we're going to be discussing today. Just as a lay practitioner of Buddhism and someone who's had derived enormous value from Tibetan medicine than astrology, but also Tibetan astrology, and just a few thoughts, and that's really to just emphasize that according to both the Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan medicine, all suffering originates in the mind. And Buddhism does not accept the view that the mind is a spontaneous biochemical product of a complex brain structure. That is the seminal principle. And there are huge definitions in WHO and across the world on what constitutes mental health. In some ways, the Tibetan approach is quite simple, and that is that mental health is a mind free from the influence of afflictive mental factors. We call them kleshas. And so that what that really suggests is that the very nature of the mind is harmonious, balanced, and pure. And so eliminating these is the goal of Buddhist Dharma practice and psychopathology, or the efforts of Tibetan medicine and astrology. And there are three afflictive mental factors in particular that are singled out as the roots of unwholesome or troubled states of mind: desire, attachment, hatred, anger, or aversion. And this leads, this is bred of ignorance and not understanding the nature of the true nature of reality. And so, in a sense, that the aspiration of Tibetan medicine and astrology, as it dovetails with it, is the same as the larger aspiration of Dharma practice, which is to understand and experience the true nature of reality as being liberating from all forms of suffering. And so for more than 1,000 years, and then you can't get better product testing than that, Tibetan medicine has helped those with afflictive emotions, or to use contemporary vocabulary, mental health challenges, through the use of herbs, nutrients, other aids, but I think most importantly, religious practice. And so this, both Loden and Choying have much to offer us. So I'm going to start with Choying and ask her to introduce us to how you diagnose and how you begin to assess somebody who comes and sees you with mental distress. And for this series, we have often started off with COVID, though it seems to be fading. And so during COVID, people are experiencing isolation, stress, depression, anxiety. And so if I were, or anyone were to walk into your clinic and say, I'm feeling all these emotions, where would you begin? First to diagnose them, and then we'll come to the treatment. You need to unmute.
Tashidele. So before I begin with my session, I would first like to pay homage to Medicine Buddha. So first of all, I would like to say that I'm not an expert in mental health or Tibetan medicine. I'm just a learner myself in this field of vast medical science. So I will try my best to get as close to the answers to the as demanded by Mr. Rajiv Mehrotra ji. And I'm, to be very honest, I'm already very nervous, since the day I was told to attend this session with you. So as we, first of all, I think I should get back to the concept of mind and body in Tibetan medicine, or Sowa Rigpa, before I answer your question. So in Sowa Rigpa, in which Sowa means healing and Rigpa means science. So in this healing science, the first thing is the mind, the mind is considered as a different entity from the body until and unless, it meets in the mother's womb during conception. So we say that once, the two of these get together during conception, then they become inseparable. So when a patient comes to see a doctor, be it a COVID patient or be it even any, patient with a simple disorder. So as soon as the patient enters, the doctor first sees, the way the patient approaches the doctors. So this way we can learn a great deal about the patient. Through this, we can know the nature. And in Sowa Rigpa, Tibetan medicine, we speak about Lung, Tripa, and Tekin, so which are very much like Vata, Pitta, Kapha in Ayurveda. So the main purpose of saying Vata, Pitta, Kapha is so that our audiences who are watching us may get a little idea of what Lung, Tripa, Tekin is. So we say that the three mental poisons, which is derived from ignorance. So these three gives rise or produces Lung, Tripa, and Tekin. So when a patient comes to us, being a Sowa Rigpa practitioner, being a Tibetan medicine doctor, what we can say is we heal the body of the patient firstly. With a background in our Tibetan Buddhist psychology, we then try to understand the patient, the problem. Because when a patient comes to us, they never say like, I have issue with my mind, I have this and this. So what we do is we give a lot of time in, like interacting with the patient, through which the patient opens up with us. Especially during this COVID season, we have we have noticed that the mind, the mental health plays a very, very significant role, because we have seen that on televisions also there has been, on social media also, people say that COVID, due to stress, the levels of COVID, COVID, or you can say the levels are becoming more, stressful. But nobody has ever said like why stress is affecting the COVID state of. So in that, the traditional system of medicine can offer, and we very, proudly say that this is because of the lung energy in the body. The lung energy in the body, when it gets disturbed, because of that, and we say that lung is this lung is the horse or the vehicle, and the mind is the rider. So this way they are interconnected. And being a Tibetan medical doctor, we try to treat the lung. But since we have, Tibetan medicine is deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy, so we, when we deal with the patient, we tell them that being a Tibetan, we all know, and being a Buddhist, we all accept this law of impermanence. So this way, it becomes more helpful, because we have also dealt with COVID patients. I can say, some of COVID patients, and when we speak to them on this level, and of course that very saying by Master Shantideva, in which he said, in which he said that if you have a problem and if you can treat it, then there's no need to worry for it. And if you cannot treat the problem, then there is no use worrying about it. So this way, even if you would come to me, come to see me, then I would have offered you the same piece of advice, along with medicines to pacify lung that has been disturbed in your body due to both physical and mental factors.
If I could just elaborate a little bit on lung that you mentioned, is that in Buddhist philosophy, we know that consciousness requires a physical base, the subtle mind that moves between at the point of conception you mentioned, and enters the physical form of the sperm and the egg. So consciousness requires a physical base. And that is one of the three physiological factors of the body, and that is lung. And it generally refers to, as you said, that as the horse on which the mind rides. So the lung is this factor, and the two are not inseparable. And mind not only has the light, fluctuating nature of lung, wind energy. But consciousness itself depends on lung as the medium to be aware and to experiences that awareness brings to it. The consciousness is carried by the currents of lung as it shifts through the senses from object to object, moment by moment. And without the medium of lung, these changes would not occur. So what the genius of, as you were talking about, is the, the three humors, and maybe you can just briefly describe the other two, is that each one of them offer a physical correlative to emotional states. So when we talk about, basically, that, hatred, attachment, give us a sense of how these three humors and their balance is what leads to a harmonious mind and a harmonious body, and the aggravation of which humor affects what state of mind.
In this regard, firstly, I would say that in Tibetan medicine, when we talk about the root of suffering, the root cause of suffering, then we would go back to the Vedic thing called self-grasping, in which we call it as ignorance. So we normally say that from ignorance comes the three mental poisons, which are desire, attachment, hatred, anger, and then closed-mindedness. Then from that comes, from desire, attachment comes lung energy, and then from hatred, anger comes tripa energy, and then from closed-mindedness comes pekin energy. So when we discuss or when we explain this to people, we say like the mental poisons are related with the mind, and the lung, tripa, pekin, which are also called as the three principal energies, or the three doshas, or the three, three defects also. So these three are in the body since our, since the conception or dating back. So lung is called the mobile energy in the body. So lung is responsible for all the movements in the body. Like I'm talking to you, this is also lung. Like I'm moving. So all this, movement in the body, that is lung. And second one is tripa, so which is also called as pitta or pit in Ayurveda. And this is loosely translated as bile or the, and when we explain it to our people, we call it as heat energy or hot energy in the body. So this is mainly responsible for creating heat in the body and for metabolism and digestive fire. And then the third one is pekin energy, which is responsible for creating cool energy in the body and for moistening or fluidity in the body and keeping the body stable. So these three are like brothers, we can say, or these three are like pyramids, So we need all three of them to form a pyramid. So likewise in the body also, we need all three of them in equal, proportion to sustain the body. And also we say that these three, principal energies, when in balance, they form the body. But when, they are disturbed due to diet, unwholesome diet, lifestyle, and any kind of external or internal factors, then they get disturbed, and then they are responsible for we can also say destroying this body. So this is a kind of concept that we have in our system of medicine. And then from all three of each, the most tricky one is lung energy or the vata energy. So we say that one has to be very, very careful of lung energy, because this energy, is mostly like what we call as Narayan, so because when the heat energy in the body is high, so this lung energy will go and, will befriend the heat energy in the body. And just as, if you have fire here, and if you just, blow air, or you can say blow air, then the fire gets bigger. Likewise, when the cold energy in the body or the pekin is dominant, and then this cold energy again, like this lung energy will go. And then as you can see, like when you when this cold breeze to the water, then it freezes. So likewise in the lung, that's why we say that lung is the most trickiest of all the three, and it is very important that we control this lung energy. Otherwise, it is responsible for leading, pervading, and then kind of ending up all the disorders. So we normally say that lung energy, people belonging to, or you can say lung being, very light and mobile in nature, if not tamed, just as outside you can see cool breeze is good for all of us, but when a hurricane comes, then it destroys all the outside, environment. So in very short, if I have to brief it up, I would say like, if we compare our body to the environment outside, because we are all made up of 5 elements or 4 elements. So we would say that the solar energy outside is equal to the Tripa energy in the body. The lunar energy outside is same as the, pagan energy in the body. And lung air is almost same to the air energy outside. So I think this way, I hope I have summed up it enough.
I think you're pointing to the sort of a balance between
yes.
inner energies and the external environment,
yes.
external energies, including nature. And
yes.
inherent in Buddhist philosophy is this idea of interdependence and interconnectedness.
Yes.
Lodela, if you'll tell us, I think yours is more challenging in some ways, how do I put it, effort to this evening, and that is that what is the role and function of Tibetan astro-science? And I know that in the Tibetan tradition, we are very conscious that we describe it as a science and not just astrology, which is frequently these days considered almost charlatan, or you can read it in the newspaper, or you can go to someone who will tell you when you'll get married, or whether you'll win an election, or which stock to buy in the stock market. But I think that in the Tibetan tradition, it has a much more profound and sacred aspiration, and as I was talking about, its motivation is very different. So if you could give us a sense, a very brief sense of what is the aspiration of astro-science in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and how would you use that to help somebody who came to you with a mental challenge, and how? And let's start with that, and then we'll talk about how you and the Tibetan doctor can work in harmony together.
So good evening and Tashidale to everyone. So to begin with, I believe I was, put forward with some difficult questions. So I'll try to go step by step. First, to begin with, why it's astro-science, unlike the common notation that we have is astrology, because astro-science is a bridge word of astrology and astronomy, where when you talk about astronomy, it's pure science, where we talk about the celestial space and the rotation and revolution, and understanding about the lunar mansions, the planets and zodiacs. And then we have more of the product, that is the astrology, that is more of the application, where we talk about the role that we play in our day-to-day life. So when we try to link it more with the question that Rajiv ji put forward, so I believe, as we rightly begin in our first minutes, Rajiv ji mentioned about the journey, the spiritual journey towards the Buddhahood. So I believe the role of astrology is more similar to aiding or helping the person in its spiritual conquest, where we talk about external disturbances and internal disturbances in the journey. So in his or her quest of the spiritual journey, so we are met with difficulties of different sorts. So the role of astrology or astro-science is to aid the person, where when I meet a person, when a person or a client comes to me, so what we usually try to do is that the role is to convert the person firstly, because many a times because from the experience, what I can say is that over 70% of the clients that usually comes for a consultation is when they are in a problem. And 30% is more when they just for the interest, or like, I'm in Dharamsala, so I thought, why not try? So something like that. So I usually begin with telling the person, it's more like introducing a person to himself or herself. So where I first begin with more of the past. So the reason why I speak more of the past when I meet a person based on the person's birth detail is that we usually meet a client for 45 minutes. And 45 minutes, it's not long enough to get to the problems of a person, or in a more betterly put, I would say, to gain someone's trust. So where based on the birth details, what I try to do is I try to tell the person about his past in the sense his early years or his interests that I believe are more individual and something that I should not be knowing since it's our first meeting. So based on this, what it really helps is that first, I get a better idea of the person. Second, the person somehow develops a trust in me. So it becomes, the service becomes more available. So easily put, it's the knowledge or the position of the celestial space that we use, or that is the basis on which we do the calculations. And the philosophy or the aim is to help the individual, because in our journey, as just like the COVID came, so we are faced with difficulties throughout. So some are physical difficulties, but most of the difficulties nowadays, pertains mainly to the stresses. And stresses, just a year ago, we did a small project where we did focus on the mental health and mental wellness, where we found out that we had 105 clients, and of which what we found is that most of these are all mental health issues. So of which the 27 suggested that the primary factor that has been the source of mental health problem is the physical suffering that has somehow or accident or something that has injected in having that. And then there are issues relating to family issues or the job issues, something like that. So the sources are different, but when we talk with the person and based on the person's birth details and so forth, we kind of develop the trust and know the person's issues more clearly. And the purpose is always to help the person so that his journey becomes more benefic and more wholesome. So I hope I have somehow been quite close to the solution that you are looking for, sir.
Well, let me just sort of elaborate a little bit that Tibetan medicine is not only related to Tibetan astro-science, but both these ancient systems are based on the same basic fundamentals of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, and space. 5 basic elements in which the universe was formed have a striking resemblance to the proportions of the human body and the 3 humors. And when these are in a disturbed state of excess, deficit, or disturbance, you get disease, physical or mental. And the other point I did want to flag, and which Choying was very eloquently describing, but is that the 3 elements represent physical processes whose, as she said, the pyramid is necessary for life, right from the cellular to the organic level. And the Tibetan medicine ultimately attributes these imbalances to psychological causes, and lifestyle and other things are in some ways secondary. And so Tibetan medicine's approach has many prongs, and that's what I'd really like to move on to. Towards a healthy way of life, the therapeutic methods of diet, lifestyle, medicine, external therapy, and the Dharma. So there are specific religious practices and rituals that you recommend as part of the healing process. So I just want to start in just one more step in the diagnostic process. We're very familiar with Tibetan doctors doing pulse reading. So tell us a little about pulse reading, and then I'm going to turn to Loden to tell us a little bit about how through the stars or the configuration of the planets, so the reading, you are able to help analyze the particular condition and the possibilities of treatment. I think these are the 2 core areas that we're looking for answers to. So Choying first, that what is your method of diagnosis? I mean, you've talked about the person walks in, then we hear that you read urine, you read the pulse, and how do you arrive at a real diagnosis, and what methodologies that you recommend? For now, let's just stay with diet and medicine, not yet the Dharma aspects of it, which we will come to.
So firstly, before we start with the diagnostic methods, I would say that I personally feel, that the physician plays a great role in connecting to the patient, because, like, even if you are a very good pulse reader, I can say, and if you cannot make that connection with your patient, then it is not possible to, like, move ahead with pulse reading or anything that you say. So as we all know that the most unique method in Tibetan medicine or Sowa Rigpa is pulse reading and then urine analysis or urine examination. So of this first, I would say that the organs, internal organs are all, like connected, or all, sends a message to the physician through the nerves or the channels that we have. And then when, like the doctor or the Sowa Rigpa practitioner or the doctor, when the person, physician, checks the pulse of the patient. So as we all know, you might have all seen that they go this way. So we say that, you have to part your fingers, like into two parts, of which, for instance, this would read, your heart, the condition of your heart, and then this would read the condition of your intestine. So likewise, the fingers are parted into two, these three fingers. So these are called as Thin, Ken, and Chak. So mostly people call this as the, like three magical fingers or the three miracle fingers. So through this, we check the pulse of the patient. And also it is said that, the checking pulse on the wrist is the most, like appropriate space or the most balanced state. Because if you check on the on neck and all these things, then it would be very close to heart, and then you won't be able to read the pulse well. Likewise, if you just check it on your, if you just check it on feet, on all these things, then it will be very far. So this is the most, like correct, this thing, most balanced state, you can say, or the distance-wise also, this is the, like exact location where you should check. And for instance, if you talk about a person coming to see you who has, like stress issues or mental health issues, then I would say we would first, as a physician doctor, we would first check, and we would be able to know that the person is, the lung pulse, which has the nature of, empty, floating, which means when you press the pulse, the pulse would go down, and then, this like more like keeping a balloon floating in the water. So this would be the nature of the pulse. So, and then going next to the urine part, we would say that urine would be more like bubbles would be big due to the nature of the lung or the wind or the air. Bubbles would be bigger, and the bubbles would also dissipate very quickly. And also, bubbles would be clear like water. So this way, if I just, give an example of lung energy, that this would be the condition of the pulse and urine. And then the tongue would be very red and then coarse in coarse, and in texture also it would be like appear rough because of the nature of lung energy. So if you just stick to lung energy, then I would describe it this way. And then, the most important factor is in Tibetan medicine, in Sowa Rigpa, what we say is, diet and lifestyle are two factors which are, like responsible for creating imbalance in the body or creating disorder in the body, as well as, like they are the, like treatment, or they are the, what do you call it? They are the remedies for the body. So if you're correct, like if you keep an eye on your diet and lifestyle before, as a prevention method also, this would be very, very helpful.
Loden, how would you use Astro-Science to diagnose whether this was, aggravated by lifestyle and diet issues, or since we also have this whole, there are many influences acting in us, including karma, past life, and our actions, which are all interconnected. So how would you arrive at a diagnosis from your perspective?
So, my basic or foundational belief is that the person's, place of birth, time of birth, and the family to which the person is born is a karmic place. So the actions and, activities that has been done in the past life has resulted for the person to be born at that very specific time and place, and the family and so forth. So when we do a consultation, so the the subject on which we base is these details, these birth details, and we look into the planetary positions of that very moment. And based on it, we make the chart. And then when we analyze the chart, what the first thing that I prioritize is first is when a person is born. So the first planetary house that is ruling the person, because when we look into the astrological chart, what we do see is that our life is being dissected into 9 different parts. So where in Tibetan saying we have this that we say Mitsalia Kisum Duksum, it is life is 3 ups and 3 downs. So just like that in our astrological computational chart, what we see is that 9 different planets. So 4 are more of the malefic, and 4 are the pacifying, and 1 is having the character of both. So when I meet a person and when the person comes to me, I do see in what phase the person really is at this moment. And then looking into the 12 zodiac houses, how it's been structured for the person. So I do get an understanding of what really the person is going through, or more of the plus and minuses of the person. So based on this, so what I try to tell the person is, as I said before in my introductory, that I try to talk a little bit about the past, so that the person is somehow, coming into what we are really here for. That is to talk more about the present and the future, because that is something that I believe we have in our hands to, make something for the better. So when I make such, conversation with the person, what I try to say is that, from the chart, what it looks is, in this year, this has started, and right now I believe this must be disturbing you, or you are having more strength in this part, so you need to do more of this and less of this. Wherein I freely tell them that if you have any questions, or if you ever feel like saying anything, just don't wait for me to stop, because what I see, what I found is that we make connections throughout our journey, and then the person comes up with what is more pushing them into this conversation, or pushing the problem that is more disturbing in their life. So, and then
this is sorry to interrupt. Part of what you described is very technical, but as a layperson, I often wonder whether in Astro-Sciences it is the planets that influence what is unfolding, or are the planets or their configuration a map of the influences on us that are carried forward from our previous lives? And I think that one of the fair assumptions in Buddhist, as His Holiness emphasized, everything must be subject to reason, logic, and our experience.
Yes.
And so, in that sense, how does astrology or astroscience stand up to this test? And obviously, one of them is, and this is what you're really telling us, is that when you start a consultation by telling people about the previous experiences in their lives, you are setting a standard and evoking trust that what he's going to tell me is based on some substance and fact, perhaps based on their experience. But then it comes to the predictive aspect, and I think it's you were pointing out that in human form we have volition, and these are one of many influences that act on us, and that we have the capacity through volition, through changes in lifestyle, in diet, through medication, to be able to change the impact of what unfolds. Now, that's really my question to Choying, is that I think we're fairly familiar, but if you could briefly tell us that from the perspective of Tibetan medicine, as to what is, and that too, I think we should explain that there are a zillion different kinds of lung. Lung isn't a singular wind energy, or there are many different types. But in general terms, what would be your guide? I mean, I know that as an early meditation practitioner, it is quite common for people who start off meditation, and particularly when you start meditating on shunya and emptiness, that sometimes you can experience great fear because the sense of the self is lost, and there is a huge a problem with lung, and then you're advised to have heavy foods. And even in some Tibetan rituals, you will get a tablespoon of, I don't know what, chung or something to soothe your nerves, lest in the practice they become too fine and the mind becomes agitated. So what is the relationship of some of the foods and diet to mental agitation and mental challenges?
Firstly, I would say that there are, though there are many different kinds of lung, but to sum up, there are 5 different types of lung, out of which we also call that there are 5 different branches, more branches of lung. But here, I would just go with the 5 different types of lung. So we say that life-sustaining lung, which is also called as Thukdam lung, it is located here. So when you go and talk about the chakras, we can also say that one lung is life-sustaining lung, which is the source of all other lungs. It is located here at the crown of the head. And the next one is, Kengyu lung, which is ascending lung. That is, this thing that is located in the 2nd chakra. That is what we call Stipa Longje Kholo. And then next one, that is throat, chakra that is located here in the throat. And then 3rd chakra would be, we say this thing, Ninga, located in the Ninga Chöki Kholo, in which we say Kapje lung, that is pervading lung or pervasive lung. And then the next one is Menyam lung, fire accompanying lung, which is, located here in the navel. And the last one is the, descending lung, which is, located in the secret, the chakra that is located down there. So when we talk about meditation, or we talk about any kind of yoga or whatever, the main focus is on prana. We call it prana. So that is, in Tibetan medicine, we would call it as Soglung. So that is the life-sustaining lung that is located here, according to Tibetan medicine, which is located here, and according to tantric, text, is located at heart. So being a Tibetan medicine doctor, Sowa Rigpa doctor, so I would speak at Thukdam lung being located here at the crown of the head. So we say that when you go for meditation, when you go for yoga, please go for a guided one. That too, under the guidance of a teacher who is, well qualified in this field. Otherwise, when you are doing yoga or when you are doing meditation or any kind of, things that deal with lung, you are actually playing with lung, especially the prana vayu or the life-sustaining lung. And if the life-sustaining lung is disturbed, the whole lung that, the whole lung that is flowing in the body gets disturbed. And when you speak about chakras in Tibetan medicine, Kholo, so we say that these chakras are, where the 3 main, 3 main channels in the body, which is Kyangma, which is the, cold or Pekin or, white channels. And then another one is this thing, Roma, which is mostly related with the heat energy in the body, or Thipa. And then the Uma, the central channel. So these 3 channels, the meeting point of these 3 channels, form the chakras. So Thukdam lung, or the, prana lung, prana vayu, or life-sustaining lung runs through all these channels. So that is why, when a person who is affected with lung disorders, vata disorder, you can say, or wind disturbance in the body, comes to see a doctor, Tibetan doctor, the first thing, we do is we press the points, these points, because these are lung points. So we see whether these points are sensitive or not. Here, one is over here in between the breast, here, and all these things. So for instance, I will give you a very simple example. So if you have, if you have too much exposed to cold conditions, or, you had too much of cold food or anything like that, and because of that, or since we are talking about mental health, I will say, if you have been stressed and the lung energy in your body has been disturbed, this I'm talking especially in context with descending lung. As the name itself suggests, descending means going downward. So I can say, when you are stressed, the lung energy, which is supposed to go down, and then, expel out the feces or, like urine or whatever you call it, so from the downward route. So when that energy is, when that particular lung is disturbed, so it takes a U-turn. It takes a U-turn, and then you have constipation. You have, gas accumulation. You feel very gaseous, and when that gas goes up, you feel congestion over here at times, and then you have headache. So sometimes, when you just burp out a little bit, you belch a little bit, you will feel, like you will feel better. You will feel better because the gas has come out. Otherwise, some people, they get, like a little kind of blurred vision also.
Sorry to interrupt. We're running out of time. Could you give us could you give us some sense of what are the therapeutic things we could because of agitation of whichever lung? Mind is agitated or depressed. What kind of diet is recommended?
Yes. Okay. Since as I said in start, the lung is light and mobile in nature. So we recommend you to take, food that is nutritious and oily. When I say oily, but please don't go for too much of oily. Otherwise, it would, affect the tripa or heat energy in your body. So take anything that's like, you can go for soup. You can also add, nutmeg in your food. That is helpful. So, but when you are stressed, it is advised that you don't take too much of coffee, especially, in the day, in the morning and in the evening hours, especially in the night, because this will provoke the lung energy in your body. And this will create more confusion for you. And also bitter tasting foods like karela, don't take it in the night if you are having some stressful times or, stressed, you're mentally stressed. And then sleep is very, very important. If you don't have good enough sleep, then this will also provoke lung energy. So I would say that in case you have, in case you have sleep deprivation or you have missed your sleep, make sure, next day you skip your breakfast and then, you sleep half the amount of sleep that you miss. Suppose you miss sleep for 2 hours, next morning skip breakfast and at least, sleep for 1 hour. This would be beneficial for your health. And then don't talk too much, that is also not good for health. And especially, when you are stressed, when there's too much of lung, do not, expose yourself too much to cold conditions, and too much of fan, too much of AC is also not good for the health.
Loden, to sort of take that question to you. So once you have analyzed that person is suffering from whatever reasons from your Astro-Science readings, with mental health issues. So what kinds of advice or treatments do you offer and why? And I mean, rather than the technicality of it, I mean, just give us a practical sense of the options that are available. Apart from general counseling, that exercise is good for you, it's useful for you to meet people, and we have talked about we did a wonderful session with Geshe Tashi Sering, who talked about the importance of compassion, of meeting other people, so the sense of the self is softened. So what are some of the approaches that are unique to the Tibetan tradition that you can recommend people that will help them? I mean, sort of a general insights and perspectives rather than a specific analysis.
So as I said before, so when I do the consultation, so one thing is that our life is of different phases. So I try to see the person, what really the person is in, because the many a times what I do find is that our day-to-day life, we are exposed more to the usage of more to the employment of the sensorial organs, where we rarely use our mind, or where we, make utilization of our mind and mental thoughts, because of which when we are having such issues like stress, depression, and other, mental health issues, one thing is that what I push is that I try to know the person more, because many a times, when we are stressed, we don't really give importance or visit ourselves, that is knowing the person himself or herself more. So it's all about, watching TV or exposing yourself to music or trying to go to beach or something like that. So what I tell the person is that it's more like an introduction of the trouble the person is in. And second is what I try to do is that I tell that, I try to give some hope in a sense, some very, realistic hope. So looking into the chart, what I try to tell is, how long I do feel the problem persists. On that base, what really the person can do in a way make more of the wholesome activities. So particular wholesome activities like, lighting a diya or candlelight, or doing something like an offering of particular, what really I feel will benefit more. And then we have this very special thing called amulet. So amulet for different reasons. So based on the person's birth chart, what I do is I prescribe them amulets, and then also suggest what the person is comfortable doing, because I can't really suggest them all the Buddhist prayers. So I try to tell what is really more comfortable. So it's all about for after a 45-minute session, what I do realize that the person tends to know himself or herself a little more. So, and then in that in that moment, the person feels like more of hope and feeling that, oh, this is something I can fight upon.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just trying to sort of keep the conversation going, because there's so much that we have to learn from you and time is running out. Tell us about amulets. What is an amulet? How is it what is it made of? And in what ways do you think it actually helps? I mean, not just the fact that it helps, but what is the mechanism of it helping?
So amulet, the Tibetan word is sungkor, it's the protector or protection. So it's we have different kind of amulets from and amulets basically hails from the tantric practice of the Tibetan Buddhism. So the amulets that we have here are specifically from the Tibetan Astro-Science. So what it really does is that in the text, what it mentions is per the Lojeng Rinpoche is that it's more like a preventive measure. And so that if you can use it before the trouble hits you, so it protects you. So it protects you mostly from the adversaries, like external disturbances. And also it converts you in a sense that it balances the element. Because when you talk about the element, we need to talk about on the more of the causal level and more on the subtle level. So many of the disturbances are more on the subtle level that needs to be a balance in order to have it reflected on the more cause level. So amulets, something that, whether you're a believer or non-believer. So from my experience, what I did sense is that it really helps. And I myself, usually carry amulets. And what I do tell is that, since everything needs to be tried and tested, so I'm carrying myself. And for the last, as many years that I've carried, I felt it is something doing productive. So I tell them that you can do.
What does an amulet contain? Do I have one? Yes.
So the
amulet contain?
The amulet that we have is a chart filled with specific mantras. And then it is, in the color of the 5 elements, like threads of 5 elements, representing the elements in the more of the protection style. And then it also has some specific blessings that are very, it's a particular amulet, but it's not from our institute.
What is it made of? Is it on paper? Is it metal? Is there some, I don't know what, a relic? What is it, an amulet?
It can be of all kinds. So the amulet that I have right now, so it's more like this. So when you look into the inside part of it, it's more of this. It's quite similar to what you are holding, sir. So these 5 threads that you can see represents the 5 elements. So the position or the structure of these 5 elements depends on the person's problem or the person's birth details. So, and also when you look into it, we have a paper that is the basis of it. So we have different mantras. So some are more of the custom made. Some are readily available, like, we have obstacle years, amulets for the cars and bikes to prevent accidents and so forth. So amulets are of different kinds. So, yeah.
How do they work? Are there vibrations that come out of it? Or how do they influence you?
So it's arcane to, to break down in words, I would say. But, because, this is something I don't think science can, cut down into and explain.
Modern science, you mean?
Yes, sir. But, but from the experiences and the demand that we have, and, from my own clients, what I do here, I have, quite a strong faith that it's really working.
Well, I just wanted to, because, as always, time moves much faster when things, you're enjoying something and you're learning something. And so time is rushing by. But just, while staying with astrology, a very important aspect of the Tibetan Astro and Medical Science Institute is that Tibetan medicines are prepared from a variety of naturally occurring ingredients, and herbs are, of course, a major source, is the authenticity of it. And I know that under the leadership of His Holiness, that he has ensured that the authenticity of this ancient tradition and the use of the herbs and all the ingredients are authentic, and there is no compromise and there is no substitution. And this comes again from the aspect of motivation. And not only that, one has to know the right location and the timing to pick the herbs in order for them to have maximum potency. And this is where, astro-science comes in, and that appropriate timing in the compounding of the medicine, blessing the medicine while making it, and when you have some of the precious pills and consuming them. And this is, referred to the astrological almanac that you astrologers prepare. And, and for example, there's a particular, and I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's called Chongsi or Dawe, is prepared under the light of the full moon of the 8th Tibetan month. So there is this whole aspect of the sacred and the subtle that modern science isn't completely able to understand or explain, that impacts the quality of medication, of analysis that the doctors provide, and the treatment, which involves both a very subtle understanding of anatomy, of psychology, of the flow of different energies and processes. And that really is the genius and the value of Tibetan medicine and astro-sciences that Mensikang so eloquently and so effectively promotes. And as I said in the beginning, most important is the motivation. It's not a commercially run enterprise.
Yes.
Doctors don't charge any money for their consultation, and people just pay for their pay very small amounts of money for the medicines themselves. But I'm now going to open this up to questions of about 15-20 minutes, with your permission, from the audience. So it's over to you, Aparna.
Thank you, Mr. Mehrotra. I think most present at this discussion today would agree that just listening to both Tenzin Loden and Dr. Tenzin Choying has, just calmed us all down. And I think that really is the biggest testimony to one's healing capacity as a physician or as a practitioner of the astro-sciences. So thank you so much. I mean, they keep talking about bedside manners of a doctor, and really sometimes that is the most important thing. We have a lot of questions, and some of them might be outside of the realm of this conversation, but I'm going to try and ask as many of those as possible. So there's one question, Dr. Choying, where different kinds of questions, but really referring to the same thing, which is these three doshas that you spoke of, and how they sort of counteract and counterbalance each other. So there is a question of how do we balance these three things? If you have the kapha, which is the tripa, I think that the feckin that you spoke of. Yeah, what does that do? What does it manifest as? So so long we have a fair sense what that does, but if you could speak a little about the other two doshas as well, I think that would answer some of the questions that Tenzin Dadon has asked, and Kamala Menon as well.
Okay. So for answering about Tripa and Tekin, so this would be I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, and this is more like generalized answer. So we say, for instance, liver. We say liver is the storehouse of heat energy in the body. Okay, so Tripa is mostly like a heat in the body. So we say that when there is excessive of heat, excessive of heat in liver or excessive of heat in the body, then what we are going to experience is headache, okay, mostly headache. So when I speak about, like excessive heat in the body, I don't mean that the body is completely, like occupied by heat. Pagan is also there and lung is also there. Otherwise, the body would burn into fire. So this is, I'm speaking of like more dominant part, So we say because of, too much of heat in the body, we would experience headache, nausea, bitter taste in the mouth, which is all because of TIPA. And then some also call it as, like migraine headache, migraine headache. And then when you go out in scorching heat or sun, you feel headache. So these are, like some of the symptoms I would say. So for, like for this condition, so for this condition, we say we need to take more of cool-natured, like for instance, cooled, boiled, warm water is the best medicine for this condition. We call it as kretang. Okay, but I don't mean that you have to, like take water from the fridge and take it refrigerated water or frozen water. It's not good for your agni, for your like digestive heat. So here I would like to clarify that when I'm using some terms from Ayurveda, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the, like audiences who are more, like exposed to Ayurvedic terms understand our system of medicine as well. While in the same way, in the same time, I would also say that on the surface level, we and Ayurveda are very similar, but when you go deeper, we are, like completely different. So I'm using these terms because I've seen in the chat, someone has written that this is getting confusing, lung, vayu, then lung, vayu, prana, so I thought, I would also explain a bit because lung is a general term, just as vayu is a general term, vata is a general term. So prana vayu is a more specific, so that in that sense, when I speak of Thukdam lung, that is also specific. So lung is a general term, vayu is a general term. So coming back to TIPA, so this is mostly the heat energy. And as I said, and in that case, in case of TIPA, this thing, Karela is very good. But again, the timing, if you take it in the daytime, it is very good, bitter tasting food. But if you take it in the night hours, then you will have issues with vayu. Now, going to the Pekin, okay, Pekin or the what we call is kapha in the body. So this is mostly, like connected with cold energy in the body. And as I say, like generally, kidneys. So kidneys are, like considered as the cold storage in the body. Okay, so we say that when there is too much of Pekin in the body, too much of cold in the body, or when when you see a Tibetan doctor, mostly the doctors will say you have ketang, which means cold kidney, but that doesn't mean like your kidney is defective. What the doctor is trying to convey is there is too much of excessive, cold energy in your body, because of which, like mostly you will feel like without drinking much water, also you will feel like urinating. You will have back pain. And then, when you walk around, like without any, without any issue, you will feel like there's some kind of numbness. And then sometimes you feel like, like your nerves are stretching, like all of a sudden you are locked, like locked. So these are all because of cold energy or too much of Pekin in the body. So in simple form, what we say is, though Pekin is located here in the head, Pekin, which is related with ignorance, close-mindedness. Just as, snow, when the snow melts, when the snow mountains melt, the water or whatever we call it, it goes down. So likewise, Pekin and like Pekin disorders are mostly, like connected in the lower part of the body. And TIPA, as I said, which is connected with heat energy. The best example would be a candle, even if you like keep the candle this way, the flame would go up. That's why, most of the TIPA disorders like headache, vomit, like nausea, bitter taste in the mouth, these are mostly because of TIPA. So for Pekin, which is cold, more of cold energy in the body, go for things that are warm in nature. So these are mostly like most of the time, lung and Pekin diets are almost same, but I won't say exactly same, almost same. So go for things that are warm in nature. And in order to keep a balance between lung, TIPA, and Pekin, so the best way is, in the morning and in the evening hours, like especially I would say breakfast and dinner, go for things that are warm, well cooked, Because see, in the outside environment also, in the morning and in the evening, or I would say night, the lunar energy is more, like powerful or more dominant outside. Likewise, in the body also, in the morning and in the night, lung and Pekin energy are more dominant. And likewise, body has no movement and digestive heat, the fire is also not very active. Okay. And in the daytime outside, solar energy is very active. Likewise, in the body also, we are moving, the pitta energy, heat is good, digestive heat is good. So you are able to eat, so normally we say that for like salads, normally people take salads. We say like if your digestion is not very good, digestive power, you can take salads in the daytime, fruits in the daytime, but not in the night. Because in the night, in addition to the energy that is more dominant in the body, if you take all this, then this will add more to, Pekin energy in the body. So this is how you have to balance the energies in the body.
Balance both things. There's one question that I think we get asked a number of times, and it's a question that's come up again, which is that how do we really know who a good doctor is? And this I'm going to ask of both Dr. Choying and Loden. How do we find the right doctor? How do we find the right astro-scientist? It's so difficult.
So, Londela would
Yes,
Okay, so how do we find the good doctor, right? So for that, first I would ask, the patient, if you are a good patient first, would you be able to follow the diet and lifestyle tips that the doctor will give you? Or are you just coming to the doctor to test the doctor? So these are also certain criteria, that the patient has to meet. Other than that, personally, what I feel is, a doctor who can understand the, not just the pulse, but the inner feelings of a patient, and who can, connect to the patient. Although we speak of, 6 ethics in a doctor, which is a must, but we are also human beings, so we also have this so-called ignorance in us. So we are also not free from the 3 mental poisons. So what I'm trying to say is, the doctor who can make the best connection with you, because a little bit of intuition everybody has. So the connection, for me, the connection matters. And after that, it is the trust that you put in your doctor that will help you, like in due course of time, the medication also. Because if you don't have any trust in your doctor, then it won't help. I don't know if I made any sense, but
of course it does. Of course it does. So then,
yes.
What about, how do we find the right astro-scientist?
So usually when someone comes to our department, so the first thing that I usually hear is that I want the most experienced and the most senior. So I usually say everyone has good degrees, so everyone is good and they have been practicing for long enough. So one thing is, also with the spiritual practitioners, when I do advise some clients to do some spiritual practice, they say I want the best master. So I guess it's natural to us to wanting the best, but it doesn't really signify that the having the best will do the best for you. So it's all about meeting your the one with whom you share the karmic relation. So I usually say that when you consult someone, and when what the person or the doctor or the astral practitioner or the spiritual guru tells you, so do you really find a connection? Like in our Tibetan Astro-Science, if the Astro-Science person tells you something and you can't really connect, or if the person is telling about your life horoscope and you are finding it more like a story of some other person and not yours, then it's the very basic that you are not in meeting with at least the right one. And then, when you make a connection, so I believe, the connection that you make is more about sharing, trust, and sharing more about, not just the sweet words, but also preaching into action. So I guess, everyone is right. So anyone can be your right, doctor or right practitioner. The basic is that to have the person is learned in the subject and the person is good motivated. So it doesn't really need to be the person is to be the most qualified or the most experienced and so forth.
There's another question, Loden, which is very common, especially when it comes to the astro-sciences, which is that how much of our lives are predetermined. And we have a question like that from Himavat Chaudhary, where he asks whether, our lives are fully mapped out already, or do we have volition? Can we change our lives? And if yes, then how can the astro-sciences really predict, or how can you even talk about the past if we have that volition? So how do we sort of resolve that?
Yeah, before I am a astro-science practitioner, I believe I am a Buddhist first. And as a Buddhist, we believe that you are your own master. So you are the creator of your future. So when you talk about the astro-science, what we really take into account is your time of birth and place of birth. So it's at the time you were born. So your life was, the forecast that we do, or the prediction that we do, is based on this. So it doesn't really mean that your life is charted out and you can't really do anything. If that is so, then you don't really have to do it. And that will, I believe, disapprove the prediction. So the thing is that when you do so, what it really makes you is that it gives you more of the forecast, but it tells you that you need to do more and more. And one thing is, it tells about the adversaries on the line, so to prevent you from the hardships and disturbances. But I believe, throughout the course, and also from my experience, so people do change. But most of the time, as I say, the accuracy is 75%. And sometimes what 25% what I do link is that the actions that you do throughout the life. So if you do more of the wholesome actions and merit works and so forth, even lives prolong. So we do have an estimated lifespan. So it doesn't really mean that your life will end by this. So it can, you can live further because of your, right body, speech, and mind actions. And also on the same part, if you do more of the negative thing, it does happen the same. So you have your life on your hand, so you need to do. But the chart that we do gives more of the the picture, the map. But you can surely make it more interesting for yourself and get better of life. So it's not that it's confirmed already.
I could just sort of pick up on what Loden said, that in Buddhism, it is not that consciousness or is spontaneously created when conception takes place. There is a continuity of consciousness, and that every aspect has something that is preceding it. So we're not going to get into the discussion and debate on reincarnation or what have you, but that consciousness that finds, how do I put it, rides on lung and finds a physical correlative has a history behind it, for want of a better word, and that's what is reincarnated. So what is widely believed is that at the time of conception, and of course there is this debate that happens within the schools of astrology, whether the time of birth, time of conception, what is the correlation that actually determines, but let's just put that debate aside. So what really, and this was the question that I posed, but I mean the answer, at least in the text that I've read, is that it is a map at the time of birth of the karmic imprints on your consciousness from whenever. And the human form is the only form in which, when conception takes place, that the product of conception has volition. So for animals, for example, it is purely reflexive. And so these imprints play themselves out till they're exhausted and the karma is exhausted, and then they move on from different levels and cycles of being, from animals to gods and what have you. That's another discussion. So each person is born unique with a particular map, and what a good astrologer is able to do, and this is something that comes up both in Western psychiatry, it comes up in meditation, is to know oneself, to know and understand the nature of the self and the influences acting upon the self.
Perfect.
Now, those influences, positive and negative, depending on the nature of the imprint, will be variously subjected to different kinds of volition. So, for example, I mean, this is, people find it difficult to, and it's somewhat controversial to get into. So what if a child is born with an incapacity or is severely challenged as a result of these impulses? and may not have the volition of an active functioning mind in order to reverse it. So we're also born with different levels of capacity, in a sense, to exercise volition. And what the Dharma practices in Buddhist traditions, but equally, I think His Holiness would say that you don't have to be a Buddhist, or you don't have to be a person who believes in any formal structured religion to be able to engage in the practices with a different vocabulary and different weightage that would make you a better, happier human being. And so in the human condition, which is considered actually superior to all other forms of life, including in some ways gods in our tradition, is because it gives you this capacity to be able to change. And in fact, to change those imprints by antidotes. So when we spoke initially about kleshas and the afflictive emotions, what the traditions offer, both in terms of physical medicine or herbs and substances, is the ability to antidote those afflictive emotions. So, for example, one of the best antidotes, and this is what His Holiness embodies as compassion, to grasping is compassion. So when you engage in acts of compassion, it antidotes these imprints. So in a sense, antidotes what the astrologer may predict would normally happen to you, but the astrologer would also point to the antidotes that may specifically aid you in overcoming these karmic imprints. So it is this very rich intermingling of different aspects of the Buddhist tradition that our discussion today is about. And the same thing happens with the particular pujas that you do, or the particular visualizations that you do. So the form of the deity that you're worshipping will have attributes that will help you antidote some of your afflictive emotions. So, I mean, this has been a very brief, so right from herbs, medicine, diagnosis, astrology, to the nature of the Dharma, to amulets, to the pujas, to what you chant, each one of them is a very it's a diverse universe with a zillion different elements. And that is the real richness of this, Tibet civilizational heritage. As I mean, really much of it went from India, and His Holiness has frequently, talked about India as being the Chela and the Tibetans the Guru. Of course, we now argue that the manner in which it was preserved, and I think when we look at the work of what's happening at Mansikang, and it is the purity of it. His Holiness has been willing to, several formulations which were available in Tibet are no longer produced, medical formulations, because the authentic herbs are not available. So you cannot just do arbitrary substitution of a herb, and the recipe that has took 2,000 years of 1,000 years of product testing can't just be changed, because it is operating at subtle and nuanced levels which cannot be empirically measured. And they have to stand up, as the Buddha said, to reason, logic, and experience. So if we keep going back to Dr. Choying, people keep coming to Lodon or the Mansikang centers, it's because they're getting benefit out of it. And there is a relationship of trust, which, as he said, is very much based on the motivation. To my mind, that is the preemptive quality that you look for, whether it's in a guru or a teacher or in a practitioner of medicine.
Indeed. And before we end, there's another question which is, typically sort of associated with alternate systems of medicine, which is, how long would it take for people to see results? Because I think we've all been spoiled by Western medicine, where you just pop a pill and the headache goes away immediately. You pop a pill and the stomachache goes away immediately. Things like changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, they seem like very difficult tasks, when the alternative could be just popping a pill. So if you could, take us through the patience, perhaps, that is inherent in the healing process, and, give your perspectives, both of you, Dr. Choying and Lodenda.
So first, it depends on the person, the level of the suffering that person is in. Because, from my experience, many a times, I usually say that, if you can do this sort of antidotes and bring a change in your mental perception and so forth, so in 3 to 4 months, it should be, you should be noticing the changes. And when it comes to amulets and so forth, just last year, when I was in Delhi, I was doing consultation from one particular experience. So I prescribed the amulet and did it for the individual. And in a fortnight, the result came. It got better. So the depressing issues that has been really disturbing for at least 3 to 4 years, it has, leveled down. So it's more of the karmic. So you can't just say that this will solve this and this, but if you bring some changes, so in 2 to 3 months, the changes are very visible. Yeah.
So the first thing is, when the patients come to see a traditional medicine doctor, I would say, not just Sowa Rigpa or Tibetan medicine, but Ayurveda anyway. So most of the time we have seen that the traditional doctor becomes, like last hope of the patients after they are rejected by, many other allopathic systems of medicine. And then another thing is, like they expect the medicines to work very, very quickly, which is, perhaps not possible, I can say. So normally what we do is, like in our system of medicine, the prime focus is on the digestive heat, or you can say the food digestion process. So depending on the condition of the patient, like if the case is acute, a new one, the medicine works quicker. But, if the case is chronic, which I said most of the time, the chronic cases come to traditional doctors, it takes time. But, alongside medicine, if you, like follow religiously, like the diet and lifestyle tips that your doctor gives you, then, the medicine proves more effective. For instance, like among our doctors community, like our own, for practitioners community, we say that our medicines, like work quicker on non-Tibetans, because they follow the diet and lifestyle tips that the doctors tell them. Otherwise, in our own community, like it is very rare that people follow the food and lifestyle and most importantly, see, in our system of medicine, as I said, whatever we eat, it first goes to the stomach, which we all accept. But when the food is not digested well in the stomach, then the product or the essence that the stomach passes on to liver to make blood, and then vice versa, liver, and then like thoroughly to the reproductive fluids. So when the main factory is not producing a proper product, so you cannot expect the other shops, we call it as shops, other counters to function properly. So in Tibetan medicine, whether it is a very like dangerous disorders and severe disorders like cancer or even a minor flu, so the prime focus is mostly on the digestive heat, keeping checking the digestion. And when a doctor prescribes some medicine, as I said, one pill is always for the digestive heat, and then in accordance to the energy which is more dominant in the body. So that's why when we translate the disease in our text, we don't call it as disease, we call it as disorder. Because what a Tibetan medicine practitioner or Sowa Rigpa practitioner medicine is doing is creating a balance among the three principal energies which has been disturbed due to diet and lifestyle and other factors. So this is one thing. And in other cases, we classify the disorders as some that are influenced by karmic influences, some by negative influences, and some which are transient, like that doesn't actually need any medicine, like just a correction in lifestyle will help. And then some which are disorders of this like which is treated by the doctor. And when we are talking about mental health, here I would say, like when we talk about mental health, please keep in mind, that the two main factors responsible for, mental health issues are physical factors and psychological or mental factors. So if somebody is suffering, physically, and you just keep on giving them, some advices, that won't help. You have to give medicine. Likewise, like if someone is having some issues, like mental issues, then in that case also you have to first see, like first touch, connect with the patient, see if advisors have. If not, you can also add medicine. So this should be the perspective while dealing with mental health issues.
There's a very important dimension, I'm sorry to intrude here, and that is the capacity and the willingness of Tibetan doctors in sort of delicate and subtle ways, is that, for example, you can go to a Tibetan doctor and you have cancer, and the doctor will tell you, look, I can't promise you complete recovery. Continue with your medication, and I may be able to heal you with your symptoms. So it is the honesty of the physician where you don't mislead someone. And that is where the integrity factor comes in. You could go to people actually will go to a Tibetan astrologer and say, well, this treatment that I'm doing is not working. Will it work? Or shall I look for another form of treatment? And the astrologer will guide them into the nature and form of treatment that might be most effective. So it is a very embracing system, which is deeply committed to this aspect of helping people come to terms with the true nature of reality. So that could include, look, this ailment, it's going to be challenging to heal. There's a way of telling them. So we can help you through the dying process and facilitate that through these rituals and practices. And in fact, after your death too, Tibetan astrology, the time of dying, plays a role in how to help, the family, help your subtle mind post that. So it is really a comprehensive system. It isn't just saying, okay, now consciousness has left the body, our job is over. Or that, look, this is terminal, there's nothing anyone can do about it. This is going to happen, whether it's your karma or your physical condition, and so hands off. So it is through this whole process, really from conception to transmigration of the subtle mind, that Tibetan astrology and Tibetan medicine and Tibetan rituals, which are all interconnected, and I can't emphasize that enough, continue to help and support the subtle mind through gross body, through back to subtle mind. And that really is the deep richness of this tradition.
Indeed, and I think it'll take all of us who have been so spoiled by Western medicine, where everything is really just at a gross level, there's nothing else involved, for us to really, begin to appreciate the many subtleties that, the discussion today has brought and foregrounded, for all of us. And I think this is only the beginning of, a process of learning for all of us as patients. Like Dr. Choying said, we also have to learn to become good patients, and good receivers of advice from, from systems of wisdom that we may not know, having grown up, but we can be open, we can change, we can learn, as has been said over and again by all three of you. So in that hope, and with the aspiration that more people are rid of the many sicknesses of the mind, that we sort of tend to bring upon ourselves. With that hope and aspiration, I'll hand over to Mr. Mehrotra to end this evening's very illuminating conversation with Dr. Choying and Loden.
Well, I have no wisdom to add to yours, Aparna, and to the distinguished panel. other than a deep expression of gratitude to both of you and the traditions that you embody and the traditions that you help us in India host and hopefully sustain. And, we've been talking about, antidoting afflictive emotions and that you help antidote. I mean, this is not to dismiss Western medicine and modernity and modern knowledge, but the manner in which I think under the leadership of His Holiness, they cross-fertilize each other and embrace each other into creating a whole and an interdependent, interconnected world. So thank you to all the panel. Thank you, Aparna. Thank you to behind the scenes, to Jamyang, to Shilpi, to Sushant, and all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who have attended this very illuminating evening. Thank you very much, and in the highest Tibetan traditions, Tashi Dele.